So today is another one of those days that has not gone as anticipated. By this time, I put myself out of commission on skating for a couple of days. I got new wheels a few weeks ago, and I kept forgetting to switch them out. And today, I remembered, mainly because I wanted to come over here and skate again tonight. But then, when I was over at my grandparents' house getting ready to switch out the wheels, I discovered my bearing press doesn't work. Probably jacked up from getting thrown around in my bag for a while. It wasn't a real sturdy one or anything, but I couldn't get the bearings out. Except I did get them out on one because something broke in the center of the wheel, and I somehow managed to just flip them both out. But that wouldn't work on any of the others. So I was SOL because I have one new wheel and 7 bad wheels because I couldn't get the bearings switched. But then I was thinking about it anyway, and I figured it up. I have 248 miles skated for the year, so since January 1, and then I'm at 469 miles since I started this in October. And before that, I had like 3 from last summer when I got the app on my phone and decided I was gonna go try skating outside, and it kicked my ass. But that's all. Clearly we've made it past that hiccup at this point in time. But I figure that's obviously more than enough time on those wheels, since I rotated them a while back and one of them's been clicking at me. And then I had like a random piece of metal and another one, and they were all looking all cracked, so it was time. But didn't get the bearings then, so I'm working on getting those ordered. Found some on sale. Got to buy a new set of wheels to get the ones on sale, which is no big deal, because I'll need them in no time with the way I've been going, especially if I start making the 20 miles happen occasionally, as I figure I will. Yeah. So I wanted to do a video like when I woke up this morning. I think I woke up at like 4:30 and fed the dogs, and there's some chaos going on with these sirens around here. Yeah, so I woke up at 4:30 and fed the dogs, and I have this tendency where if I start kind of thinking through things, next thing I know, I'll have like 3 hours that I killed just with my mind wandering, and still be wide awake. And that was kind of the way it was this morning. This morning was the reason I wanted to do another video when I was awake this morning was because yesterday I talked about how both with my thought processing and healing in general, everything works kind of on a spiral. And took a really long time for that fire truck to get down here and past. It's like 1.5 miles from the fire station to the school. Anyway, so on the topic of spirals, I had something come up this morning where it ended up being exactly that spiraling process again. And And yet again, one of those mornings where I randomly end up crying for a little while, because it's like I end up at another level of the healing journey. And yeah. So this morning, zippity, this morning was more daydreaming time and wandering off in connection with my twin flames energy. And Zippy, it started out, I don't even remember where it started at. And then later it moved to the daughter that I've spoken of before, that I have seen this child on and off since I was in high school. So more of those knowings that just kind of follow me around. And I've talked about her before. When I first started seeing her, I was in high school, and it was one of those times where I was frustrated with my mom about something, and I put it out there that I would never have kids if I did not heal appropriately all the way through from the stuff that I would otherwise potentially pass on to my child. And I had no interest in doing that whatsoever, because I saw how the stuff my mom has actively not been healing from in her own life was affecting me, and how it was playing out in our connection. And so I made that decision back then that if I could not heal it, then I would not have kids, because I was not going to perpetuate that cycle all over again. Zibbly dee. I brought the dogs with me because I haven't been home much today. We walked earlier, but then they were just at home in the house most of the day. I mean, they had air conditioning and all that, so it's no big deal, but clearly we're a little agitated at just sitting in the car and not doing anything. So that was like the first time. Apparently we're thirsty, so let me hold on just a second. Okay, so Taz was helpful and spit all over my arm too. I filled the water bowls earlier, so I don't know why we didn't think to get a drink until right this very moment. But anyway, I put that out there, that unless I healed from all the drama that I was getting to live with, I didn't want to have kids. And I'm at 40 now, so thus far that has worked out well for me. My dogs are my kids, so yeah. But a few weeks ago, I was meditating and had a name come to mind for this child, and it was like, oh, okay. So I've kind of just been hanging on to that one. And this morning I was thinking about nicknames, and what I was thinking on that end had to do with the healing process, and things that have been important for me to discover on the healing end of things, and nicknames associated with that. So this morning, as I'm thinking through these random scenarios, it came up when when I was 7 is when, well, it was the start of everything going to crap. So I was 7 at the start of 91 when my great-grandpa passed away. And then after my birthday in the summer, I turned 8 then, and then my dog that we'd had since I was a year old ended up having to be put down. He was old, and this is another thing that I never really lumped as a traumatizing thing, but it was pretty traumatic for me. And I have thought about it before. I just hadn't thought about it as that in that time frame of one of the things that, I mean, all hell broke loose, so it was one of those things too. The reason he ended up getting put down when he did was he had gone under a chair, and of course I'm this little kid, that's my dog. He was my protector for basically my entire life after he found us. And I didn't know what was happening, but he was kind of bothering me as far as trying to get away from me. And being a child and not really knowing what was going on, I reached under the chair to pull him out, and he snapped at me. So that was one of those traumatic things too that I didn't really lump together with all the rest of the big traumas. But I remember like pulling back my hand and being just like, he bit me, or he tried to bite me. It's like, this was no good. But of course he ended up getting put down because he was old and not feeling good. But it was on Halloween, and at least I'm pretty sure it was Halloween, because my grandma came over right as soon as everybody that my mom was babysitting at the time, once everybody else went home, my parents took the dog. Me and my brother did not get to go, and I think I was taking a nap, and then I woke up and they came back and my dog was no more. And that time they didn't bring him home. They left him with the vet because the vet said they would dispose of him, and that was the only time that has ever happened either. And my mom's always said that she regretted that end of it. But there was the thing that started with the bullying, where my cousin decided it would be a good idea to tell everybody we'd had sex, and we did not. I was this little 8-year-old kid with all these traumatic things that were happening in that short span of time. And I got very overwhelmed with just the confusion of it all and my life being flipped upside down, basically. Because once my grandpa passed away, my mom, she didn't know how to deal with that herself, let alone having kids and dealing with that. She was 20 when she had my brother, 22. She was married and had both of us. She got married before my brother, so she would be pissed if I left that, making it sound like she was pregnant beforehand. We've had that conversation before. But anyway, so she didn't really know what to do with us at that time. She didn't know what to do with herself. So it was my great-grandpa passed away. I felt like my mom forgot she had kids. Then my dog snapped at me and then had to be put down. And then my cousin started this bullshit. And there was just a lot of stuff that was all at once. So this morning, what I started to think about was Okay, back in the days where we would go to my great grandparents' house every weekend when I was growing up, um, there it was always a big deal because I don't know how many times I've heard that I was always Daddy's little princess. And of course, my name means princess, and so that was just kind of a thing. Well, after all hell started to break loose, and I started lashing out, like, at one point, we had kind of half-assedly gone to church, but then Mom decided we needed to go to a different church, and I got pissed at having to get up every day for it, and I started, like, freaking out and throwing tantrums and stuff, just because I didn't want to go. And it was kind of one of those things. It's like, well, okay, I felt like because everything was going wrong in my life, it felt like God hated me, so I hated God. And I remember actively making that decision, where I said, okay, God hates me, I hate God. End story. And you're okay. Started having the meltdowns. We stopped trying to figure out the church stuff for a good while. And going right along, or right back into that whole nickname thing, my mom and dad will talk about it like it was a joke. And I just realized this morning, it's like, that was not a joke for a little 8-year-old me that's had all these traumatic events. But, I went from being Daddy's little princess to Daddy's little farthead, because it wouldn't have been nice to call me a shithead, of course. So, yeah. So that was the thing. And then the whole Daddy's little princess thing, that went in a hurry. And let the kids look outside. We're at the school. So, and they've talked about it like it was a big joke all this time, and it's like, that wasn't a joke to me. Like, it always used to piss me off, obviously, because that's just kind of a shitty nickname for one, but to be a 8-year-old kid and have all this other traumatic shit going on, and then, because they don't know what's going on with me. I think we're watching squirrels and rabbits and stuff. Then they start calling me names on top of it. That's not cool. But that was pretty much what ended up happening. And yeah, they laughed it off and made a big joke out of it. And it never set right. But I didn't really necessarily know why it didn't set right, until this morning when I was thinking about it. And it's like, I was this kid that's going through all these traumatic events and having my life completely flipped upside down, and then I get a shitty nickname from my parents because I'm acting out because I don't know how to deal with anything. So yeah, on the spiraling end, this is yet another layer to the stuff that was going on that I didn't even realize was going on until I've been having these opportunities to process it. And there's been a lot of these things that have come up, like especially in the connecting to the twin flames energy, because a big thing with twin flames is once, okay, so typically there's a meeting involved that ends up triggering these things to come up and get processed out of the system. Since I still haven't met mine officially, I think I've said something to him on social media once or twice, and it was acknowledged once, but that was just like, yeah, it was not an actual encounter, but it seems to have worked the same way, because of everything that I've been piecing together since then, and it's been really deep stuff that I've had to work through too. Like, at one point, I woke up thinking about like candlelight dinners and getting flowers and all that sappy romance stuff. And, it goes from like being really positive and daydreamy and floaty feelings, and then gets brought to a screeching halt as, I start thinking about, she's restless. She doesn't know why we came here. We haven't walked this evening. We might do that before we go. Not yet. But with that particular scenario, I started, hey, shh, we just drink again, yeah. Anyway, with that particular scenario, what ended up coming up was that, it was a worthiness thing. It's like, I've got flowers and stuff in the past, and it's been lovely, but, okay, my ex-husband got me one of those edible arrangements for our anniversary when he was in Germany, only because we had been talking and my mom mentioned that he should do something for me for our anniversary since he wasn't around. And that was, I think that would have been the second anniversary at that point. And the boyfriend before that, I mean, we were really good friends the entire time we were together, but we didn't do a whole lot of like that kind of romantic stuff. I think back to that whole relationship, and it wasn't bad, but there was a lot I had to learn from that situation, and that's another story for another day. But with that, shortly before we broke up, he went to Las Vegas with his brother and a couple friends, and it was for his brother's bachelor party. And basically, when he got back, the way it came across was, it was unfortunate that I even existed because he could have hooked up with random chicks in Vegas. It's like, the fuck? And because I needed that situation to have been a good thing, and for the most part the relationship was, and there was a lot of good growth that I did get from it, that was one of those things. It's like, for some reason, I kind of forgot about it. Shh, stop. That's enough. I kind of forgot that he had said that, and kind of glossed over the whole thing. Like, it was just a few weeks after that I made the comment that I felt like we were growing apart, and then the next thing I knew, he broke up with me. And the ridiculous thing is, we've been together for 4 years, and it came up like that one night at work. We were both working night shift in the same town at different places. And I don't even know what happened exactly, but I just like word vomited it up while we were texting. And then he's like, I need some time. And then we ended up taking 2 weeks to think about things. And in that time, we didn't make it, obviously. But when, we took the 2 weeks, and then he was coming over to my house so we could talk. And he was basically ready to back out of coming and just sending me a shitty text message. It's over kind of a thing. And the only reason he didn't was his mom told him after 4 years he owed me better than that. So yeah. Anyway, but like, I kind of glossed over that whole "it's unfortunate you exist" thing, because honestly, I needed that last, most of the relationship was favorable. I needed it to maintain its favorability in my eyes, because remembering that I had been treated better than my ex-husband was treating me, was part of what helped me get out of that relationship. Yeah. But, once I leave my ex for good and start processing through it, then I remember, it's like, oh yeah, he said this bullshit, and that was what started me on that whole path of, word vomiting, that we were growing apart. And that's what triggered it. Yeah. But, I don't know. It was one of those, more of the spiraling stuff and getting down to the deeper issues and the deeper aspects of the healing process. But okay, so I didn't finish. That all came up from the daydreaming and about, like being with somebody who's actually a romantic person and likes to do stuff like that. I end up having this, I basically in my head in this conversation, I'm saying this is too much. And then I end up real life crying because it came to my realization that the whole reason I was thinking it was too much was because I was believing that I didn't deserve somebody who would want to do those things, because it'd never been a thing before. So why would anybody like me that much after? But even more so, it was something that I had to heal within myself, because I realized I didn't feel like I would deserve any of that stuff. And because I didn't feel like I deserved it, it was a big thing. I'm just like bawling in bed for a while before I start my day. And there's been several things like that have come up in this process. But that one, there again, I started thinking back, and it's like, okay, my mom has always been the one that has done all the buying gifts and all that stuff, like whether it's Valentine's Day, birthdays, Christmas. My my dad just never has. He's always just defaulted and let my mom do it. I love this dog. She's awesome. What is happening, kids? Anyway, so there was 1 year. Thank you. 1 year. I think we're getting warm because it's like 80 degrees now, but it's hot. But the sun's not out. It's going down. I was in high school. I wanted to say I was 15 or 16. The one and only time that my dad went out of his way to do something. And he went to CVS for something in town, and that's enough. We're almost done. He came back with this pair of like Winnie the Pooh Valentine's Day socks. They had Winnie the Pooh and Tigger on them, and I always loved Tigger. So for that year and that year alone, was the one that my dad did something for me. And of course, since we'd always had this kind of strained relationship, I got Taz slobber down my neck now. Getting crappy nicknames after when you're going through traumatic events. It ended up being something that was really important to me, and I wore those socks out real fast just because I was wearing them all the time because it was something my dad had done for me that didn't include my mom in the middle of it. And I realized, Tess, quit looking at, I realized that, that's another one of those things that I just kind of internalized that wasn't good enough idea, didn't deserve, whatever. And they basically, that's just, I basically I took on the idea that I didn't deserve anything. I shouldn't want anything, any of those things, because even my dad didn't like me enough to do those things. And of course, going through this whole process, I don't dislike my dad by any means. That's not the point of this. But being able to find the wounds that I took on, and like the false or the bad beliefs that I've picked up over the years, and seeing where they come from, and that whole thing, like, I get along with my parents pretty well, most of the time. The biggest issue at this point is they always want to shift to negativity, and because I'm not trying to let that into my life anymore, I'm trying to steer clear of it. So when they go negative, I leave the room. But my mom and I have, spent I don't know how many hours just watching random shows. We used to have shows we watched every week, and then I kind of stopped watching TV very much when I started this whole healing process. And I mean, let's see, I think I watched like 3 movies back in the fall. One of them started me on the path of, like, it was Love Again with Celine Dion, Sam Heughan, and Priyanka Chopra Jonas. That one was like, it started me on the, well, maybe I want to be interested in finding somebody again. And it started opening me back up to wanting some kind of connection. And then another one was The Crow, and I don't know how I went as long as I did without seeing that one, but I finally watched it. It's like amazing. And then I think because we'd watched that one, the next thing was I don't even remember what it was called. I don't remember what it's called, but there was another one that was psychological thriller-esque that we paired with it, because that's usually the kind of stuff we were watching. But like all the hours on like The Walking Dead and the Chicago Med, Fire, and PD series, all that stuff. First off, The Walking Dead just kept going. It's like they are separated or breaking this off into too many different things. I can't keep up, and I lost interest. And then got to a point where Chicago Fire was the one I preferred of the Chicago shows, and there were like some other things that we would watch periodically. Well, then we shifted the whole TV situation around even, but it was once I started with Love Again and then started down that path, it's like the universe just kind of swept the rest of it out of my my interest as much, and so I just haven't really cared to watch anything. So now, like when we do my hair, that's the most I watch TV. And like this week, it was Wayne's World, and I don't remember what I've been on after that. But Wayne's World was the big one, and I think the big part of it was. Oh, it was something on Netflix. Because I was gonna watch either Encino Man or Son-in-Law, and I had both of those on DVD, so I could have gotten those. But when I put them, or when I used the voice thing on the remote, Encino Man didn't show up at all, and Son-in-Law, it was like rent for $5.99 or buy for $17.99. It's like, well, I already have them, so I'm not doing that just to watch it. Yeah. Anyway, but yeah, like the whole healing thing being a spiral, like I do have an okay relationship with my parents. But as I'm going through this healing process, they are just kind of like, they know I'm changing. They're not sure why and how necessarily. Although I did give my mom round one of all the stuff that was happening. And the crazy thing is, when I mentioned it to her, like the stuff with my cousin, I didn't say directly what it was as I was saying it the first time, and she's like, now what was that? And I was like, and I told her, and then she's like, I was wondering if that's what it was. It's like, because she was babysitting, and that was the whole reason anything came up. I was just kind of in this my little oblivion with all the trauma that was going on in my life. And then he was just this little kid who his family told him about all this stuff. I didn't know anything. And he was like, oh, I could teach you. It's like, whatever. I don't know. I don't even remember all of what happened on that end. But I remember we did not. But he told everybody we did. And that was enough to make my life a living hell. And, you know, my brother had run out of the room to get my mom when my cousin was, or he heard what my cousin was saying, and, you know, he's kind of shut all that off too, because when I mentioned it as I was healing before, he's like, I don't remember that. It's like, you don't? Because it was pretty freaking traumatic for me. And, you know, I told my mom at the time, or when I was talking to her back in, or I think it was just a few weeks ago, when I was telling her what's been going on that end. She's like, you could have said something. It's like, no, I couldn't. It's like, I said, immediately you were laying on the guilt and the shame. I said, because, okay, what I have seen by and large in this family, okay, that particular group, the cousin, you know, his whole family line, it's my grandma's the youngest of 4, and the other line is the oldest of the 4. I think. I won't swear to that. But there was always this them versus us sense of things. And Tazzy quit. You know, they're the ones that are much more free and open with that kind of stuff, and my family were the prudes, basically. And that's what I told my mom. It's like, you know what? It's just the opposite side of what our line did, where it was okay to not talk about anything and, you know, grow up using words like hoo-ha instead of vagina. It's like, that's not healthy. And just everything was like this big, embarrassing, traumatic thing. You don't talk about it. If you don't talk about it, it's not supposed to be a problem, right? Well, except for if there's little kids involved that don't have any kind of information, then that leaves them susceptible to butt heads that think they have more information than they actually do. Yeah, and then it just goes downhill and becomes a big, dramatic, pain in the ass thing. You know, but it's like, as much as it's always been them versus us in the family, I mean, there were 2 other sisters, and that's like just somewhat irrelevant. But that, yeah, them versus us, it's like, it's just 2 different sides of the same coin, and neither better than the other, just destructive in different ways. So, yeah. And that has been a process in the healing. And I keep coming back to various aspects of that, you know, and even as I'm sitting here looking at the clock at 43 minutes, I can think of like 5 different routes to go with that, and I'm not going to because it's getting dark. And the dogs have calmed down again, but now my picture's starting to get all grainy, so yeah. So on that note, more of my life drama, and it all goes back to the spirals, y'all. Just around and around, making the connections so I can heal them. And yeah, it's what it is. So until the next time, as always, I appreciate you, and yeah, see ya.